The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Good morning and welcome to Project Independence and You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm your host, Rebecca Miller, along with Kristina Liu today, who is the co-host or hosting team member. Kristina is also, of course, the producer of this radio show and brings our guests together every week. So, Kristina, welcome this morning. Yes. I know we gave Otto off today.
I know, the nerve. He's in beautiful Florida right now.
The nerve of him. But we have a great guest today and a dear friend to all of us and Project Independence, Ron Fatoullah. And Ron, thank you so much for joining us and giving us an hour of your time. We are really grateful because I know you're quite busy. Ron's an attorney. He's going to be talking to us today about elder law and estate planning and any other little updates for 2023. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. And there are a lot of updates, Rebecca. And Kristina, thank you so much as well.
Of course.
So yeah, it's great. You know, I was thinking this morning, you give such incredible information. And I know we've talked about this before, and it happens in a lot of levels that people tend to not plan. So, you know, you tend to hear from them when they're in crisis. You know, a lot of times people do the same thing with their health. It's not until, you know, something bad happens that we hear from them, and then they're in that whole, you know, healthcare vortex and insurance and specialists and things like that. So, you know, being that we have all these baby boomers turning 65, and that'll be going on for another 7 or 8 years. I think it's like 10,000 a day. People are turning 65 and, you know, coming of the age, either they're in retirement or approaching retirement, or someone like me, I was born in 64. So I'm that last year of baby boomer or start of Gen X, whatever. But when do we start planning? When do we start thinking about it? What are the things we need to do? You know, with so many people coming to this age, I mean, this is the first time we've ever had a population of so many people, you know, becoming senior citizens and planning for retirement.
You know, Rebecca, in my opinion, the earlier the better for so many reasons. I mean, let's even bring it back, you know, earlier than that. When you start to plan a family, you do want a will. You want all of these documents. What if something happens to one of the spouses, both spouses? Who's going to take care of the children, etc.? Do you get life insurance? How do you take care of them? It's funny. I was at a friend's house last night, and we were singing songs. One of the songs we sung was The Circle Game by Joni Mitchell. And, you know, it goes through the cycles of life. And I'm sure we all remember that one. And I think you got to start earlier, prepare for all the cycles. But as we get to be over 55, over 60, there are more things that we have to consider. You touched upon healthcare issues. That's huge. And unfortunately, as we age, we have more issues. I mean, it's just a fact of life, you know, and we have to prepare for it. We also have to make sure that our money could be there when we need it. And there are ways to protect those assets so they can last longer. So all of these things should be dealt with, I would say, as early as possible, but they're different circles. You know, as Joni Mitchell said, it's a circle game. And there are different phases of life that we morph into. And, you know, I think there was a book called The Third Phase or The Third Wave. I think it was very interesting, but a lot of people are approaching that last third of their lives where, you know, people are saying it's the golden age. And when I mention that to 99% of my clients, they say, "You call this golden?" You know? So, so you want to prepare pretty early. And in the beginning, let's say if you're 60, it might just be, look, this is what we're going to do now. But when you get to be 70, this is what we have to do. So it should be early. And then, of course, as things change, the plan has to change. It has to be flexible. Things happen in life. People die, people get ill. There are challenges. We're dealing with so many parents that have children that are addicted, and we have to draft special trusts for them, and grandparents that want to give to grandchildren that might have issues. So whether they're disabled or there's autism or an addiction or a money issue, they just can't hold on to money. These are all things that should be dealt with along the way, but especially as you get older.
Is there also, because the other end of it and is that the upper end of it is that people are living so much longer, not necessarily healthier. We talk about this a lot on the show. When I was a kid, very rarely did someone have a grandparent who was in their 90s. It was so unique when someone lived to their 90s. It was I had a couple of relatives that did, and even 20 years ago, that was still, wow, 90s, and doing all that they were doing at that time. Today, it's not unusual. We have people coming to senior programs and chats, and they participate in our advisory committees, and they're in their early 90s, and some even older. So we have, is there a different way? Is that something that people like now planning for retirement should think about? Because I don't know that, 20, 30, even 40 years ago, anyone really planned to live to 102. And what does that actually mean? It means that you're outliving potentially people in your own family, and you could cognitively be really well, but you're definitely going to be getting frailer and limited. So I'm curious about that. Like, I would love to see like a timeline of, like you talk about the Joni Mitchell song, and I'm thinking in my head, like, what do I do at 50? And what you're saying is once you have kids, that's when you start. That's like the beginning of the planning phase for the whole thing. I know I'm putting a lot out there, but these are, the issues that are really coming to light today, because we've never seen this before. So many people turning retirement age, becoming of retirement age, and also on the other end, people living so old, so much later, super seniors, we call them.
Right. And it's very individual. We have clients that are dying so often now in their 50s, 60s, 70s. But just yesterday, I had a client that walked in just alone and said, "Mom is starting not to do so great, but she's so young." I said, "Well, how old is she?" 92.
Oh,
And she
She's
has
a
friends
kid.
that are older. And I had lunch with a client 3 Saturdays ago. She turned 99, totally lucid. But just as you said, she remembered everything. She has been my client for 35 years, believe it or not. And she remembers everything
That's
in the
great.
past and even now. But, she's getting more, weaker and more frail. So the planning has to shift. Sometimes people don't spend anything, and that's a big mistake. And then sometimes people just go crazy, and that's a mistake as well. So it's a balance. And you don't know, God tells us, we can plan, but God, has his plan. And you don't know if today's going to be your last day or you have another 30 years. So we have to just be prudent in the way we plan. We
Right.
just don't want to give everything away, because I do tell clients to give assets away, but typically into a trust where it's there and it's protected, and if it's needed, it's there for them. But I always say to every client, it's great giving assets away. You want to give a down payment to a child for their home, and it's a wonderful thing. But just like the stewardess says in an airplane, put on your mask first and then take care of your child's, you got to take care of yourself first.
Right.
And a lot of this, believe it or not, is a mental issue, not even a money issue as much. People have to feel secure. I see clients that might have $5, $10 million and say, I just don't have anything. I feel poor. And a client that has 20,000, it says, I have everything I need and I feel great. So it's also a mental thing as well. And it's a lifestyle thing, and you could adjust your lifestyle and still do things. And there are so many great senior benefits that people have. Many travel agencies are geared towards seniors, or there are reductions in prices. And there are ways to do it if that is something that you need to basically do what you want and still have money there should you age to be like my client, 99. And in August, she's going to be 100. And she will
Wow.
be 100. I know she'll be 100.
It's amazing. You know what I was thinking, Ron, because I just think about my own experience, and I brought this up on the show before with my grandfather when he was alive. He was a depression baby, and he made a very good living as a photographer, but he was very terrified about giving people money, anything. Luckily, my mom and I would just sit with him and try and talk with him because he was so hesitant to diving into this world of estate planning and setting up a will and all these things. And I remember it was such a struggle because, it was like this fine line of broaching that topic with him because he would get like angry as if, everyone's just trying to take his money, and so how do you, advise people that are listening? Because, obviously we're a senior based show, but we have a lot of caregivers and people in the community that tune in too. How do you broach that topic with your, loved one?
Delicately.
Yeah.
Depending on the individual.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel like they're out of control if they don't control their money. For example, if I would suggest, in your situation, Mr. Jones, it would be a great idea to start to gift some assets. If there was some resistance, there might be ways that I can have them make, for example, estate planning completed gifts. But there could be some control that they have. For example, let's say someone has a business and they really have estate tax issues, but they want to be in control. They can actually give away that business, let's say to a child who's running the business, but maintain the management. So we give away, for example, 99% of the non-voting shares or interests, but the one vote still can be maintained by the individual. So we look to see for ways that the individual might feel more comfortable and still accomplish what he should do. Or, in his situation, we just saved for his family about, sounds crazy, very wealthy guy, maybe about $25 million. I know it sounds absurd, but and a huge amount of money, but why not? He's going to be fine. And in doing this planning, a lot of it is control and a lot of it is superstition. If I sign my will, something's going to happen to me. And God is telling me I have to sign my will now. And if I sign it, who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of months? It doesn't work that way. I mean, very informal statistics in my firm. Someone signs a will and they last forever. And of course, I'm teasing. Nobody lasts forever, but there's no correlation with doing planning. It's the way you feel and the way you approach it. And if there's something that makes you nervous, we try to get to what are you worried about? What's making you nervous? Sometimes we have to bring in a geriatric care manager, and for example, taking away the car keys, talk about losing control.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Ron, I'm sitting here thinking that elder law attorneys or people that are focusing on elder law should minor in geriatric social work,
Right.
just so you're like.
It's so funny back that you were saying that because it really is so complicated, and as I was speaking from experience, And that, Ron, like what you're saying, and that's what we always tried to get across to my grandfather at the time, is that you're actually gaining control. You're not losing control.
Right.
You know, so it's like to get that acceptance, because, you know, you're calling the shots. You know, it's not, you know,
Exactly.
so it was, that was a very, but it is, Beck, it's so true, you know, because you really need to talk it out, because it is such a fear and a loss of control feeling that they have inside, you know, so to get that through to them is really something that, you know, is quite difficult.
It is quite difficult. Rebecca, very interesting, because I went to social work school at Brandeis before I went to law school, and
Ah.
the training was very, very good. You know, we still need it. Um, just, I know I said it before on the show because this was many years ago. We had a client who came to see me, uh, said, "You got to take away the car keys." They didn't. And dad is only driving around. This was in Queens. Came to see me again a few months later. The man hit 18 people on
Oh,
Jamaica Avenue in Queens with all of these many lawsuits starting. You know, he's going to have 18 or have 18 lawsuits eventually. And you just can't let it get to that point. So we live in a different age where you could pick up the phone, a cell phone, Uber, and even if they
Right.
can't navigate Uber or a cell phone, you just have a child do it or someone else. I mean, there are ways to get around this and still be mobile and still go to a park if you want to, or go out and meet a friend for lunch. And you could still do it if you want to do it.
Right. Okay. Actually, good timing. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio. We're speaking with Ron Fatoullah, who is an elder law attorney, speaking with us about estate planning and updates and a lot more. We'll be right back after a short break.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
and then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. You know, those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
Welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Kristina Liu. I was going to say Otto Los, even though he's not here, just because, you know, it's what I always do. And we're really enjoying the conversation we're having today with Ron Fatoullah, who is an elder law attorney, and just, I want to say, almost a guru in this topic by now. And I like, you know, we were talking in the very first part, the first segment, just about planning, when to plan, you know, and Kristina, you were saying, you know, this whole thing with wills and superstition, you know, it's so interesting. And we talked about this. This is kind of like on a same kind of area about people who wait for the other shoe to drop. You know, something good happens, but they think, well, I'm just waiting. You know, I'm waiting for the other. So something incredibly wonderful happens, but because they know the other shoe's going to drop, they don't get to enjoy it. So I went to this like really great workshop a few months back, and the facilitator said, guess what? The shoe is going to drop. It is. It's inevitable. You're right. It's going to drop. But, you know, you have a choice. You can wait and just sit around waiting for it to drop, or you can just enjoy what's going on that's going to be well, you know, instead of like this, oh, I know something horrible is going to happen. Well, you know, something horrible is probably going to happen. It's just part of life. So, you know, just sign the will, and, you know, either you're going to live a long life, or, you know, something might happen, but it doesn't matter either way. You know, it's that kind of vibe I was getting when we were talking about it before.
You know, Rebecca, there's a very old saying, believe in God, but tie up your camel. In other words, yeah, you know, God is, you know, it's great and all of this, but be proactive. Do what you need to do. Lock your car door. Do your documents. I tell clients, come in. The planning is simple. We make it simple. Get it done, and then celebrate your life. If something happens, call me. But celebrate, enjoy.
Right.
Don't think about it. Just go out there and live.
Once you
And
do it, I wonder if people bring that with them, worry, I don't really have my will. I don't have things racked up, but I don't want to sign it because then it means, anything could happen. And then you kind of live with this kind of peripheral thing, that comes along with you instead of, like you said, just get it done, and right. Go on with your life. And if there's a change, we call,
Well, and that's what I think, Beck, is a great point, because I know so many people that, get so caught up in, oh my God, I have to have everything figured out. But the bottom line is it can be altered, so if something right. changes, whatever, I mean, people's circumstances change all the time and you want to update your will or something, like that is a possibility,
That is always a possibility until you can't do it anymore.
Right, exactly.
And it's not a possibility. In other words, if you have too much dementia, you can't do it. So, you just have to read your body, read your mind, and other people will definitely get involved. Children, siblings, family members, friends, definitely will be there to let you know and be like a mirror to you. So you have that reflection. And you need to know what to do. But there's no correlation between getting things done and the future. To get it done.
Right. And the piano falling out the window on you. Right. It's just...
Exactly. I can tell you one thing. Most of the time I see the hesitation just to make the appointment.
Yeah.
Right.
But once they're in, they're like tight and nervous. But then some people are. But then as the consultation evolves, we go through things, I just see the tightness disappear. We're doing this. Nothing happened. Lightning didn't hit us yet.
Right.
And we do it, get it done. Even if the docs aren't prepared yet even, or signed, obviously, I just feel so much better. This wasn't so bad. And it's not bad, it's good. You're just preparing for the future. And that's important.
Right.
And let's take the other tack. Let's say the shoe isn't going to drop. The shoe is going to be there. And let's say you want to make sure that you have your assets protected, and your money could last longer. That's a good thing. So it's not just a negative. It's not just when you pass away. This is for your life, but it's also for your family. And the goal is to prepare, like a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout. Prepare and live your life.
I know Otto loves that phrase, saying rewirement instead of retirement. So retirement means, you kind of pack in the house, you move into Florida, but he's more about, rewirement. I don't know if there's a book on it, Kristina. I know, but he talks about it a lot.
I think that's definitely, because that's certainly written down in my golden nuggets.
It's called Rewire, Don't Retire.
Right. Yes.
It's a great book. I forgot her name, but I was on the executive council of AARP for a while, and she was on it as well. We had great talks. She would be an amazing guest if you choose to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd be happy to, to get you guys connected. But it's a great book with a little part is a workbook. It's wonderful.
We'll have to get it for Otto's birthday show, Kristina.
That's right.
You take pen in hand and you write in the book, and it's just wonderful. And you definitely feel like you have a life ahead of you. Rewiring is good. Rewiring is good every single day. It's good when you're 20, because if something's not great, you want to do something different.
What are we going to do in North Hempstead when Ron rewires?
It's just not allowed.
I think he froze.
Oh yeah, we might have lost Ron a little bit.
I think we lost
he's
Ron.
He's going to leave us in suspense with his rewirement.
Yeah, well, we'll have to ask him when he comes back. But we're talking with Ron Fatoullah all about estate planning and elder law and, when is the right time? And it's just, he just, really, really has been giving us a lot of great information. He's definitely still frozen.
Yes,
but,
so I'm going to send him an email.
Okay.
Hopefully he has some of that. He's able to get that. But, Beck, I think these are important, things, and we're certainly always talking about planning, and this is certainly an important piece of it, and I think, when he said people feel better when they, do it. And I think that's with so many things in life. It's the anxiety of making that initial appointment, and you're thinking about all the documents you have to do and bring in, so it's all this anticipation. But, once you actually get it done, it really is such a, a good feeling. So I think it's just,
I like that whole vibe about it being empowering. It is, you're kind of, you're taking control, you're managing whatever, is in for your wishes. And then, once you do it, you're it's done, and you just don't have to carry that along with you.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
It's
just, and that's what we dealt with when we were having this conversation with my grandpa when he was alive. My mom had said to him, like, look, Dad, I've done this, I'm doing this, so it's not, and she clearly, was a lot younger than him, but she said she's, was in that process. So, like, get this done, like, you will feel better, so I think that's certainly something important.
Yeah, I think we have Ron back.
We hope so. Sorry.
Yes.
We didn't know if we scared you away with our question about will Ron rewire eventually.
I know, Ron, you left us in suspense.
It was, and what will North Hempstead do?
Busy rewiring. Sorry. God, no, this never happened. So sorry.
It's very windy outside, so I was actually a little nervous that this could, but it's okay. We roll with the punches, Ron. So you are back with us.
Good. So much is going on, by the way, in my legal world. Oh my God, it's crazy. I would love to get into some of that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And is it super complicated? That's the other thing. It's so much is so complicated.
It is complicated. And the problem is it changes all the time. All the time. I could help to simplify some things, but there's a very big new issue that's coming up with Medicaid. Because of the pandemic, since the spring of 2020, when you submitted a Medicaid application, all you had to do is state, we call it attest to what your assets and income are. So all you had to do is say, for example, last year, the Medicaid numbers, for eligibility for an individual was 16,800. Now it's over 28,000. It's went up a lot. We could go over that as well. But people, because to be quite honest, a lot of advisors or social workers were telling them, just put it down. Doesn't matter what you have. And they can't kick you off Medicaid. Crazy. So all of these people, who are nursing homes, and they just attested to assets. They might have $1 million. They put down a lower number. They could not get kicked off of Medicaid. They had Medicaid, but now the what is hitting the fan, and the rules are changing. So as of July 1, for any new applications, all documentation must be reviewed. It's complicated for nursing home care. 5 years going back, Medicaid will look at every account, every single month of every single account.
Is it July of 2023? Because you said as of, or is it 2022?
2023.
Okay.
So we just got word. There's a new Medicaid informational alert, which just came out. Literally just came out, which changed what we knew a couple of days before. So it's a little hard to stay on top of all of this, but it's as of July for new applications. But I just want to say something to everyone here. Medicaid fraud is a felony. So you got to be, I don't know what Medicaid's going to do or not do, but it is a felony. You're taking funds from the government that you're really not entitled to. And again, it's a felony, and you got to be very, very careful on what you do. But those that have done this, Medicaid is starting what they call an unwinding process, where they're unwinding all of this. And in just a couple of months, the process will starts in June, and they're going to look at everyone's application. And on their renewals, we call them the recertifications. If they have excess assets or had excess assets, they're going to be kicked off, and termination notices will be sent. So we're talking about all of the termination notices that will be sent out there. What else will they do? I don't have a clue, but it's criminal, could be criminal. It is criminal, but I don't know if they're going to do anything about it. And will they go back and try to do something? That I don't know. But this is what we're dealing with. And so many people, for example, just this week, it's Friday. So this week we had 3 people who were on Medicaid, got this news, just want to make sure they're going to be okay. I said, well, what's going on? Well, mom went into a nursing home, and the admissions department said, well, we're going to do the Medicaid application for you. And that was it, and months later, they said, no, we have Medicaid, you're all set. I said, well, I don't even remember signing for it. Yeah, you signed for it. So they filled out an application, I'm not saying all nursing homes, most
Right.
are on it, but this one nursing home. But we got 3, not all from nursing homes, but 3 of them didn't even know that they signed an application, had assets substantially over. Last year was 16,800, substantially over. They're going to get kicked off, and it's scary, So we're dealing with talking about phases in life, phases in this Medicaid program. Well, this is now we're hitting upon a new phase. We had the pre-COVID. We had COVID, very easy to get on, but then now we're post-COVID. We're coming up to it. And this is going to be something that we have to deal with.
Right. Ron, could you just back up a little bit? Because for a lot of our listeners that are maybe younger seniors or, even some of our older ones, you talk about Medicaid and a lot of people think to themselves, well, I can't qualify for Medicaid, but, we talk about this a lot. But can you just kind of go over like generally what Medicaid means as we get older versus, kind of, I don't know, what people think of Medicaid? I mean, yeah.
Sure, I'm happy to. First of all, long-term care expenses are enormous. So last week we dealt with a facility that charged almost $22,000 a month for a shared bed. $22,000 a month for a shared bed. And there wasn't a ventilator, there wasn't anything, that could be considered extenuating circumstances. That's crazy. That's a very high number. And a lot of facilities are much lower, but that's a crazy number. But if you're in a facility that charges 14, 15,000, that's also a pretty high number. And home care is getting more expensive. So we have to plan. And you could pay for it privately, but not many people have enough money to pay for long-term care, that could be chronic. It's just too expensive. But if you have the funds, you could self-insure, and that's wonderful. If not, the options are only Medicaid planning or long-term care insurance. Really, those are the only options for long-term care. And the Medicaid rules are tightening, just like this post-COVID. They're tightening in so many different ways. On the ADLs, haven't changed yet, but they will. The activities of daily living, those requirements are getting much stricter. We didn't have this before, but we don't have it yet, but it's coming down the pike very, very soon. It's all tied into COVID, believe it or not. Even the new ADL requirement, never liked this, coming up after the COVID and after certain COVID money it has been used up, instead of not having they look at the ADLs, but it's not having a firm number of ADLs. Now, soon, I should say, it is a firm 3 activities of daily living that you need help with, substantial help with, in order to get on Medicaid. That's coming up. Uh, if you have a dementia or cognitive impairment, it's 2 activities of daily living with supervision. So those rules are coming down the pike as well. And so we need to know about it, deal with it in advance, and get prepared. And something that they implemented just last year is this crazy assessment process. We have a diagram in the office, if anyone could see it, but what you have to go through and the nooks and crannies and this and that, but it's so crazy. You make the connection with Medicaid, and you still have a managed long-term care company, but you have more hoops to jump through, and it's not just 10 minutes here or 10 minutes there. There are more assessments, and it's done by the government, not your physician. And the first assessment alone, the last one we had, was 3 hours.
You know
3
what?
hours.
We're going to come back to that, but we do have to take a very quick break. You're listening
Absolutely.
to Project Independence and You on Community Talk Radio, and we will be right back.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
And welcome back to Project Independence and You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller along with Kristina Liu and Dan Cox. We are speaking with Ron Fatoullah, who is an elder law attorney and just giving us a lot of information and a dear friend of Project Independence and been on the show multiple times. And you've done a lot of programs for us too in person. So we're always happy to have you on and get all the updates. I know we were kind of talking about Medicaid and the differences. I know you had this grid that you have up in your office, just kind of, and it looks very busy. So what does it take to attest to getting Medicaid?
The testing is simple. You just put down your assets and income. That's coming to a close. Soon that won't be here. Those that have it tested, these are my assets, this is my income, and you do have more. Things are going to be getting very interesting. You're going to get kicked off Medicaid. That's what we call Medicaid incorrectly paid. You get kicked off Medicaid. Could there be criminal or civil lawsuits? We just don't know. But you've received money from the government that you weren't entitled to. But what I was referring to was home care. Home care used to be so different. Your own physician would submit a report. Now, the New York Independent Assessor, which is Maximus, is going to be making these decisions. And instead of just having, an assessment, there are several assessments, many of which last over an hour, which is crazy, especially that first assessment. So it's getting more and more complicated. But complication is one thing. The attorney could get rid of the complication, just let the attorney handle it. But the real issue is Medicaid is simply not giving for home care, that home health attendant, not giving the hours freely anymore after these assessments. It's getting very, very difficult. So we're trying to find creative ways around it. So we have NIA, NYIA, New York Independent Assessor, that's doing these assessments. because they think you might be in collusion with your own physician. I mean, it's just so crazy. So we have this independent assessor, and in the end, they're just not giving the hours. So we have to be very creative. And sometimes it might involve a fair hearing. Um, I always said to my clients, if we're good, we won't need to go to a fair hearing. Right now, I still could say that, but it's getting to the point where, sometimes we may need to have to go that route. But so far, we're still getting our clients the hours that they need, but it is a struggle. It is not easy any longer. And it was for so long, especially, Rebecca, as you said, when you could attest, you would test and you didn't have to go through all of this.
About all the documents.
It was very, very simple. But now it's very, very difficult. So what's coming down basically, Medicaid will look at your finances. What I did not mention is that there will be a 30-month look back. I did mention it on the last show. We thought it was going to be implemented a couple of years ago. Now it's put off at least until, DOH said at least until, could be longer even, April 1 of 2024. So no need, and you should never lie on a Medicaid application, but even no need to lie, even if you were going to lie, because for Medicaid, for Medicaid home care, right now, you could simply transfer the assets into the Medicaid trust or even outright, but outright, there could be many issues. But let's say you have $1 million, you could transfer it to that Medicaid trust now in February and be financially eligible March 1. You don't have to attest to something that's not there, and you should never do it anyway. Things always come back to haunt you. But for Medicaid home care, you can still freely give until an application that will be submitted on or after April 1. And even then, they may move the bar a little farther, so we don't know. But right now, you can just still give your assets away. With all the talk about a 2.5-year look back, it's still on the books in New York, but the federal government has not, given its approval of it. So it's on New York's books. It was approved, but CMS still has to approve it in New York. And the Bar Association is trying actually to get legislators to just say, we're going to repeal this. This is just not good for anyone. Seniors are going through, when they need Medicaid, enough red tape. Let's not just add this. This is just, I would say, poor timing.
The look back. So when you talk about the look back, is that just pertaining to home care, or is that for Medicaid?
Sorry. It's only home care for the 30-month look back. And that will not be implemented until April of next year, and maybe even longer. But for years and years and years, we had a look back for Medicaid nursing home care. And that look back is still 5 years, 60 months. So if you need a nursing home, Medicaid would look at everything. If you give your assets away as gifts, Medicaid will look back and they'll see them. They're going to look back 5 years from the time you're in the nursing home. And we'll look back to see what gifts the applicant and the applicant's spouse have made. And then they'll penalize you and say, look, you gave away $141,000 as gifts, because that's how it works in Nassau and Suffolk counties. You gave away $141,000, we'll make you wait 10 months. You'll get Medicaid, but we'll make you wait 10 months. But for Medicaid home care, I just really want to get it through people's heads. Everyone was talking about a Medicaid look back for home care. We're not there. If you have $500,000, you want to give it away today. Put that into the Medicaid trust because you get tax advantages. You could go on Medicaid February 1. I'm sorry, we're in February, March 1. It's as simple as that. It's crazy. It's crazy. We still have that. So, and be very careful. Yes, you still can attest to your assets and income for a few more months, but it's a felony. So,
Is there limits to gift giving that people can give without it becoming an issue?
yes, there are limits. But let me tell you, I don't think many people that are listening to this are in that category. So the limit is, first of all, let me backtrack. New York State has an estate tax, but doesn't have a gift tax. So New York State taxes you when you die only if your estate is over about 6.5 million, 6.58 million. They'll tax you. But there's no gift tax. So that's good. Federal government has a gift and estate tax, but that exclusion is huge. It's 12.92 million per individual, almost $13 million. We are not talking about anybody who should be contemplating Medicaid. You know, somebody has 12, 13 million, we'll talk about estate planning, which we should, because those numbers are going to be halved in the beginning of 2026, a couple of years away. But anybody who's going to be applying for Medicaid doesn't have an issue. And by the way, a husband and wife will have close to $26 million to gift without an issue. The annual gift tax exclusion went up from 16 to 17,000 a year, which means that I can gift and you can gift $17,000 to anyone, a couple $34,000 to anyone in a calendar year without filing a gift tax return. But who cares? Even if you're supposed to file a gift tax return and you make a gift of $1 million, but you have $12.92 million of an exclusion, you're not going to be paying any taxes till you use up that exclusion. No one who's thinking about Medicaid needs to worry about gifting.
Okay, interesting. So what about estate planning? I know you wanted to talk about it. We don't have that much time left, so I'm sure Kristina will have you back on the show.
Sure, I'd love to. But very simply, if you do have a larger estate, you want to do planning. So what is a larger estate? Well, we want to do planning for New York State as well, and that level is 6.5 million, 6.58 million. And the funny thing with New York State's exclusion is when you die with an estate of 6.58 or less, there's no New York estate tax, which is, it's pretty high, which is nice. Husband and wife, they each have 6.58, but there's a huge difference. If a husband dies with, let's say, a $6 million estate, no New York State estate tax, and that's wonderful. What happens with the federal tax? Well, this portability, this almost 13 million, 12.92 million, this portability on the federal exclusion. So, for example, if 6 million is not used up when the husband dies and there's a surviving spouse, as long as we do a certain filing after death, and they actually let us do it, they gave us 5 years to do it now, but just do it so you don't forget. The unused portion could be transferred over to the surviving spouse. In my example, the wife, and she could have an extra exclusion. Why is that important now? Because they're going to have these figures in the beginning of 2026. So you want to use a spouse who died, a deceased spouse's unused exclusion. We could do a filing and just get it over. All we have to do is file a federal estate tax return, a Form 706, and we would get that. So it's extremely important to do. Please don't forget that.
How quickly do you have to do that, but after the death of a spouse?
Yeah, they just increased it. It's now up to 5 years, but I hesitate to say that because out of sight, out of mind, just do it. Get it done with and get that. Could you imagine if there's like 6 million or it could be 10 million of unused exclusion that somehow you could use it? And again, We had two clients who won the lottery. In my long history of being an attorney, two clients who won the lottery. Just do it. If a spouse passes away, with all of the other things that are going on, you need planning for yourself, but you definitely want to do that if you have any sort of decent sized estate.
Well, if anyone's listening and they want to be Ron's third client to possibly win a lottery, how would people get in touch with you if they want to, connect with you and utilize your services?
Sure. Feel free to call our offices. We are in Great Neck, and I lived in Great Neck for most of my life. But you could reach our office at 516-466-4422. And we also have a simple number to remember. It's a toll-free number, which nobody needs today, but it's 877 Elder Law.
Oh, good. You got that number. That's good.
Well, 877, not 888, not 800, but it's 877. I just say sevens are lucky. So, hey,
that's right.
You'd have to still be very lucky to win the lottery, even if we retain you and things are going well.
It's not a guarantee.
Yes, he's giving a disclaimer.
I think like 18 million to one, but give it a shot. Feel free to call our offices. But there's no guarantee that your chances will be any better.
What about a website, Ron?
Yeah, the website is fatoullahLaw.com, FATOULLAHLAW.com, or elderlaw-New York spelled out.com.
Okay. If any of our listeners want that information too, you can always call 311 or 516-869-6311 and speak either with, Kristina, of course, or me, and we'll be happy to give you that information. I do get a newsletter from you too.
Got it. Oh yeah. By the way, anybody who's listening, we're happy to put you on our Elder Law newsletter. Goes out once a month, and really very interesting news. I mean, the last one we did was the attesting. That's going away, and all of the numbers have gone up. Medicaid last year was 16,800. It's now moved up to over 28,000 January 1, changing again, as crazy as it is. In March 1, it's going up to over 30,000. So the eligibility level almost doubled, and the income level almost doubled as well. So.
No, but those, Ron's newsletter, and I have to say, I get it, and we share it with all of our social workers and nurses too, because this is such a complicated topic that changes so frequently. But I think those little, memos that you send out, Ron, that, give you an overlook are just so beneficial. And while we're on the show, I actually got an email from one of our staff people that you did an in-service just recently for our social workers and nurses over at EAC about Medicaid and all these changes.
Yes. My pleasure. I love it. I love educating.
Yeah,
it's part of. Well, it is complicated. Yeah. Educating is very important. Mm-hmm. So, everybody I think has to give back, and love to do it. I really do.
Education's power. When we lost you before, Kristina and I we were talking about empowerment. I mean, it really is empowering to be in control and all your wishes to kind of be planned out. So, poo-poo the superstition, stop with the superstition and, give Ron a call, or, even you can even call one of our social workers and, we help you, guide you to Ron and can help, walk you through the process or assist. Make the plan for yourself. It's really a gift you're giving yourself. Avoiding it is just causing stress and worry. And once it's done, it's done. Or unless you want to change it. And you always have that option too.
You always could change a will, and even a trust usually. Many times we need to do an irrevocable trust, and people say, well, irrevocable, we could never revoke it. You can in most circumstances. Which I'm happy to go over at any time, but you can if you draft the trust right. Right.
Yeah. No, I don't think we have that much time. We're probably down to our last minute. But, so much important information, Ron. Every time you're on, it's such a learning process, and it's all in your head. It's amazing. How do you keep up with all, you become
do it every day.
You have this whole, year of this mantra, and then all of a sudden they throw this at you and that, and that just goes in, and you tell people that stuff. But I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Great information, and I know Kristina will have you back, and hopefully maybe you'll come and speak at one of our advisories again and give a little bit of an update there. Again, thank you so much for giving us a full hour of your time on Project Independence and You Community Talk Radio. We're on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.